Hello, everyone. Good morning and welcome to this edition of Weekend Waypoints, a production of SEC Extra over at d1baseball.com. I'm your host, Joe Healy, going to walk you through Friday's regional results around the SEC, take a peek ahead at what's on deck for Saturday. It was a late night in a lot of places. Rain feels like it got just about everybody in the Southeast. So obviously plenty delays, including where I am in Auburn, but it wasn't too bad. Just a couple hours in Auburn and we finished at a little before 11 o'clock, which is not terrible. Probably another late night tonight, just from the standpoint of the schedule is moved back to where most games are at 2 o'clock or 8 o'clock local time, so we're waiting to start the day a little extra long. But make sure you have plenty of coffee ready to go if your team is playing a winner's bracket game at 8 o'clock, as they are here in Auburn. Before we get to anything specific from yesterday's action, I have to remind you this episode of Weekend Waypoints and every episode of Weekend Waypoints is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. The sun's out and the fun is on at Academy Sports and Outdoors. Score a cool pool, savor summer flavor with a grill, prep for fishing weekends, or mount up with a new mountain bike. However you have fun, you can't lose with our top brands. Gear up online at academy.com or at your local store. All right. Let's get to some comments before we start running down the results of yesterday's games. Big Dog says, not shocked that Creighton beat Kansas, but surprised that they beat them so easily and didn't have to use a ton of arms. How nervous should us Hog fans be? Impressive win for Creighton yesterday. Really just never let Kansas, after the first few innings, never let Kansas get back in that game. And Kansas has kind of had a season like that, a little up and down. So I also was not totally shocked by that, but this whole time I've thought that Creighton it's not a great matchup for Creighton to take on Arkansas. So anytime a 3 beats a 2 like what you saw last night, I think there should be some nerves. So I understand that from an Arkansas standpoint, like you're gonna have to play well to win, but with the way Creighton is built, it's not a lot of swing and miss on their pitching staff. They're not a team that. I mean, they had a bunch of hits yesterday, but they're not a team that's going to hit the ball out of the ballpark all that much. At least that's their history. So I think it's actually for Arkansas a good matchup here. But we'll see. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Morning, Joe. Good morning, Caleb. He says, nice work by Ianson saving the pin. 7-0. I'll take the shutout. Lots of surprises throughout the bracket. Take a win any way we can get it. Yeah, agreed. I mean, Auburn beat Central Connecticut State 9-5 last night. And it wasn't pretty necessarily, but on a day when 4 host teams lost, pretty doesn't have to matter. You gotta, a win is a win in the postseason. Brant Robin asked about, did Wright State get screwed out of winner's bracket on a sketchy call versus Vandy? Well, they did. I mean, their coach, Alex Sogard, certainly catching some heat, took his starting pitcher, Cam Allen, out after 6 no-hit innings against Vanderbilt. I did not see a ton of this game because it kind of, the business end of this game coincided with the Stetson NC State game I was covering ending and then post-game interviews. And so I just didn't get to see much of it. But so I heard about that. But if there was an umpiring call you're referring to, Brant, I did not see it just because I didn't get to see much of this game. So I'll have to go back and look if that's what you're referring to. Ryan says 4 seeds are ready to play yesterday. Agreed. Nicholas Doherty, Oklahoma versus UNC should be electric. Absolutely. Kyson Witherspoon against that UNC lineup. Eric, to answer your question, yes, I think LSU is very much in the mix to be an Omaha team. They're playing like it. Randy Peterson, Myers was dealing after he settled down in Auburn, and Lucas Steele's home run was a bomb. Yeah, Lucas Steele, 110 off the bat, 432 to right field. Really hard hit ball. And then, Carson Myers was the story for Auburn yesterday. Like that game had kind of late inning, like tight moments written all over it. And Carson Myers just put an end to that. It was 9-5, but it didn't feel that close, if that makes sense. Gingham Bart says, a big UTSA fan today for no reason in particular. UTSA looked great, by the way, beating Kansas State yesterday. Texas also took care of business against Houston Christian. Those 2 teams have played this season. We'll see how that goes in the winner's bracket. Daniel Ordoin says, good morning, Daniel. Love late May, wind blowing in at the box was nasty, but Anthony Ianson was elite. That's such a a cheat code for LSU. Those two guys at the front of the rotation. Any hope that Little Rock had of making things happen just never really, just didn't really have any chance of having success. Let's see. That Oregon play at the plate was a brutal call. Yeah, there's not an SEC game, but yeah, I mean, if you saw what Spartan King is talking about, like play at the plate, Utah Valley's catcher is. I don't think anyone's necessarily in the like. I don't think there was any sort of anyone's at fault. I think it's just a thing that happened. So play at the plate, Utah Valley's catcher's kind of waiting on the ball to arrive. Is he in front of the plate a little bit? Like, yes, he was not in a great spot, but I don't think he was doing that on purpose to like sit on the plate and block it, but the runner and the ball and everything kind of arrive at the same time. Anson Arrows is the runner for Oregon. He runs over the catcher, but clearly was trying to slow up or move or do something, but he just didn't have a choice. He ends up being ejected, which means he'll miss today's game, and Oregon's up against it because Utah Valley beat him 6-5. So just a tough one. Like, I have some sympathy for umpires in the moment having to make those calls, but when we look at it on review and that's what we get, that's tough. I haven't seen anybody who's defending it strongly. I think at best people are saying, it's kind of a tough call. What are you going to do when you have a collision like that? But I don't think anybody's out here saying that that was absolutely the right thing to do. Mark, my apologies. Brant Roban, not like the bird. Okay, thank you. Good correction. I like that. Well, I'm always trying to get better. Always trying to improve on this show. Sven Kreisberg says, Hail State, we won and Ole Miss lost. I call that a good day. Yeah, if you're a State fan, certainly, man. That is a good day. Oh, Brett, I did hear about this. It said it was a foul ball that got overturned to a home run or something like that. People screaming home cooking for Vandy. I did see this. You're right. Yeah, and I think, Sean, this is what you're referring to. Yeah, with the Vandy having few and terrible camera angles. Yeah, I did see this on a monitor in the club level of Auburn Stadium as I was walking back to the press area. And yeah, just like those camera angles are not helpful. Like they're not clear enough. They're not at the right angle. They're not, so yes, I did see this and maybe they got screwed, but that's the thing is like, we'll never exactly know. I don't think, because those are notoriously tough calls. The fair foul on a home run right on the foul pole. So yeah, maybe, but Wright State also didn't help itself any with the way the pitching is handled tonight. I have sympathy there too, but man, I feel like as long as that kid is shoving the way he was, like, I think you got to give him a shot to throw a little more, just because you had a lead and okay, get a couple base runners on, let's make a move, but just felt a little premature for me, especially as a 4 seed when we're going to have to probably outplay. We're going to have to play it kind of above and beyond our heads to pull this upset. Like we're just going to have to play the best game we've played all year. When you've got a guy throwing his best game all year, like let him eat, man. Like that's kind of my thought, but it's easy for me to say from my seat here. UGA Duke going to be great. Boots on the ground for it. Oh, good for you, Kayla. It should be fun atmosphere. The UGA atmosphere with the renovated stadium and the success they've had lately, the UGA atmosphere has improved a lot in recent years. So that should be a lot of fun. Duke looks legit, and Duke tends to play well in the postseason. That's kind of who they are. Carl Dunn says, can't wait till late night at the box. LSU does its best work after 8. That is so true. That Rhode Island DBU game went a little extra late, and there were still a bunch of LSU fans there that were very into the game. They were still selling alcohol, so they were still having a good time. Scrolling. Nick Oshman says, did that Riley Nelson home run call follow normal procedure with home plate ump overruling the first base umpire? The Wright State coach is really classy and professional afterwards, but clearly upset about procedure. Yeah, I just think, and I'm not a by the book rules expert, I would say first, but I would say it's pretty rare that you have two umpires get together and before, just two umpires get together and someone's mind is changed based on that. I think there's tends to be a deference with umpires of like, hey man, you made the call. If that's the way you saw it, we're going to go with that. But so the idea that those two guys would get together and it'd be like, what'd you see? Well, here's what I saw. And that changes someone's mind. That's pretty rare. So I don't think the procedure necessarily is incorrect. I just think, although I could be wrong about that because I'm not like I don't have the rule book memorized, but but it is rare, I guess. So even if it's not a procedure thing, you can understand from Alex Sogard's standpoint how it would be like, well, how can you possibly make that call in this situation, right? So I get the frustration. I really do. Josh Woolley says, I can't believe 4 hosts lost yesterday. Just glad to not be one of them. Exactly. Patrick Porter says, any chance Ole Miss has trouble with WKU? Not biased at all as a Tech fan. Yeah, everything came up Georgia Tech yesterday in the Oxford Regional. We'll talk a little more about that Ole Miss game. But, WKU's tough. They've won a bunch of games this year. And they can pitch it. Like, that's the thing is I think if you're Ole Miss, you're worried a little bit about if there's a little bit of a hangover effect from last night and losing to Murray State. Does a good pitcher kind of take the air out of Swayze Field pretty quickly? I go back to that Tennessee Tech. Now, that was a regional final, but the Tennessee Tech regional final back in 2018 where Texas Tech really wasn't doing anything special on the mound, but as a few zeros piled up for Ole Miss, like it just got harder and harder and harder and harder. And it felt like the at-bats got kind of worse and worse and worse and worse. So yeah, WKU can give Ole Miss trouble. If Ole Miss is able to score early on in that game, I think it takes some pressure off because WKU's not. They've got some good offensive players, Ryan Weidman chief among them, but they're not necessarily an offense built to against SEC level pitching to really come back quickly like that. So they're going to have to. I think they're going to have to pitch pretty well to beat Ole Miss today, but it's not going to be easy. Kane's Cats Heat says, I love you, Miami. Yeah, well done to Miami yesterday. Win over Alabama, caught a ball at the warning track to make that catch. And so then, moves on and we'll get Columbia today. Little bit of history in that matchup too. I believe Columbia got to a regional final against Miami not long ago, 2015, maybe something like that. 26. I guess that is a while ago now. It's 10 years ago. Anyway, and I feel like they've played before in the regular season as well. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just kind of catching up on the comments here. Sean Miller shoving, talking about Cam Allen. It was a no-hitter, so far beyond shove. Hurt my heart as a former pitcher. Yeah. Can't blame you there. Yeah, see, here's the thing is like, crazy thing about that Vandy home run foul, I saw the replay 17 times, could never see the ball. Yeah, that's the thing is like, again, yeah. So somebody earlier in the chat suggested like lasering the foul pole, and like, I'm with you. Like, I don't know how that would work. I'm sure it could work, but like we got to do. It feels like we got to do something, especially at the college level, where some foul poles are not very tall, and it's like, how do you, if the ball is 75 feet above the foul pole, like how are you supposed to tell? How are you supposed to have any clue? Ryan says, are we sure Malachi and Kyson didn't switch jerseys last night? He absolutely dominated my Huskers. Yeah, that was yeah, that's yeah, I was thinking about just the if you'd ask Oklahoma, like, for what they expected out of Malachi, I mean, they would have hoped for what he gave them, but I don't think they would have, even in their wildest dreams, expected a 6 shutout. So, I mean, they're set up really, 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 really well moving forward with Kyson. Daniel says SEC best conference supposedly goes 8-4 with terrible teams playing against, and Wright State got ripped, or they would have won. I think it's supposed to be clearly wasn't a homer. I don't think it was too much clear about it just based on the replays. I think it was 9-4 actually. But yeah, I mean, SEC lost some games. That's the way it goes. This is regional. Everybody, Butch Thompson said it last night in postgame that basically, I'm paraphrasing a little bit. Basically, everybody now has either been really hot lately because they won their conference tournament, or has played really well all season, and that's it. Like, everybody in regionals is good or hot or both. Brent Roban says, thanks, Mark, for the pronunciation. Down in Louisiana, it's Roban. And here's the thing. My mom would be very upset with me. My mom, little known fact about Joe, my mom has a very Cajun last name. And so that is where her family was from. So the fact that I botched that is just gonna, my mom would not be very proud of me. Let's see. Scrolling. We got an ECU fan in here. Big win yesterday for ECU over Florida. Talk about that. Catching up on the chat. Busy in the chat today. Call out makes a good point. And I've heard this from coaches too. Like, it says, I'm telling you, if they don't pitch back-to-back or to the same team, Malachi is dangerous. Like, I've said this before on this show, there is a theory out there that part of the reason why, and I think Kyson, is better in some specific ways than Malachi. His command certainly is. I don't think anyone's doubting that right at this moment he's the better of the two pitchers. However, there is some thought that some of Malachi's struggles at various points of the season have been because they're so similar. Not just in terms of, they look similar, but also it's, statures and deliveries, and their stuff's a little different, but it is a similar look. So, I don't know, because I'm not in the batter's box and I'm not in those coaches meetings with the opposing coaches and what have you, but that seems plausible to me. Tucker Medlin says, morning, Joe. There are rumors in state circles that Pico is hurt and can't go today. Have you heard anything along those lines? And if so, is there any hope of Evan Sierra recreating his Ole Miss outing? Yeah, I suppose. I suppose that there is a chance, right? I mean, that was a big game for Evan Sierra. It shows you that it's in there. But man, against Florida State, it's a whole different deal. I have heard that rumor. I have not heard it from someone who would know whether or not there's anything to it. Let me put it that way. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll have to. Obviously, if they don't have him, it makes the path a lot tougher for Mississippi State. But good win yesterday against Northeastern for sure. That's helpful to be able to use two, like, quote, bullpen guys, cover and have them cover 9 innings. That's huge for their ability moving forward. But yeah, without Pico, it gets a lot tougher. All right. Let's go over some good stuff in the chat. Great questions, great comments. See some good conversation happening between you folks. I always like to see that. All right, let's get to some results here. John Bowman also says DBU did not start their Friday guy. That was yesterday against Rhode Island. Micah Bucknam was all year till he got hurt. That is true. We'll see what DBU has for just comprehensive win for DBU. We'll see, obviously, but there are years when DBU is capable of winning a regional, and there's years that it turns out they aren't, and sometimes it's hard to tell because they typically, whether it was the Missouri Valley or now CUSA, they typically are just so much better than most of their conference foes that sometimes it's hard to gauge until they get into these situations. So we'll see tonight at the box. All right. I believe our first game to go final, and these are not in any real particular order, to be honest with you, but I believe it was our first game to go final in the SEC. UGA 20, Binghamton 4. Actually, no, that's a lie. The Florida-East Carolina game ended first. But anyway, UGA 20, Binghamton 4. This was probably the first game that we knew was over because it got out of hand so quickly. 4 hits each for Coley Branch and Trey Phelps. They've got Duke today. Duke coming off of a 12-5 win over Oklahoma State. I would expect some run scoring there, although being at night maybe helps it to where the ball doesn't fly quite so much. But I still think expect that to be a very offensive game. Auburn 9, Central Connecticut 5. Talked about this one a little bit earlier. Not a great start for Cam Tilley. Wasn't really commanding it. Came out in the second inning. Carson Myers comes on and throws 6 really good innings. 104 pitches. That's a career high for him, which is impressive when you consider that, you go back a couple of years and he was a weekend guy at times for Auburn. So good stuff there. They take on Stetson tonight. Stetson beat NC State 11-2. They scored 7 runs against NC State in the first inning of that game. We'll see what Stetson has. Butch Thompson was very complimentary of them in postgame yesterday as a team that he described them as buttoned up. And I think that's a good way to put it, having seen them yesterday. Got a lot of bunts down, did a lot of moving runners with less than 2 outs. I mean, their pitcher yesterday, Jonathan Gonzalez, is excellent. We'll see what happens moving forward because statistically, at least, Gonzalez is far better than the other guys Stetson has used in the rotation. So we'll see what they have left on the mound that can help slow down the Auburn offense. So that one should be fun. But Auburn with the win over the Blue Devils Friday night. Texas 7, Houston Christian 1. A little bit of an opener for Texas with Ethan Walker. And then Grayson Saunier and Hudson Hamilton. A great relief work there so that Texas didn't have to go to any of its big name arms to finish that game off. They've got UTSA tonight, a game that's been played this year. UTSA has a win over Texas. That's a place UTSA is comfortable. But at the same time, Texas has seen them too, and it'll use weekend arms this time around. So it's not exactly apples to apples, but it certainly can't hurt the confidence for UTSA that they've won a game against the Longhorns this season. LSU 7, Little Rock nothing. Mentioned the 7 2/3 strong innings for Ianson. They've got DBU tonight. We covered that pretty extensively, but good job by LSU to really just not give Little Rock any sort of hope, because even in some of these games where the 1 seed ended up beating the 4 seed, like they were dicey at certain points, a lot of these 1-4 games. So the fact that LSU just didn't really ever allow that to manifest is huge. Oklahoma 7, Nebraska 4, 6 shutout for Malachi. Great outing there. And now that sets up probably the blockbuster matchup of Saturday in terms of matchup versus the team. Kyson Witherspoon on the mound against North Carolina. Should be a lot of fun. Must-see TV if you have a chance to get that game on your screen, whatever screen that may be for you. Should be a whole heck of a lot of fun. West Virginia 4, Kentucky 3. Another 1-run loss for Kentucky. Another late loss. It was a walk-off sac fly for West Virginia. Really hard-fought game. Probably the best, most competitive game of that early window. Wasn't a lot of great games in the early window yesterday. This was one of them, though. Some tough news for Kentucky that I just saw. My buddy Derek Terry mentioned it. No Tyler Bell in the lineup today for Kentucky, and obviously that increases the degree of difficulty. They'll take on USC Upstate in an elimination game. USC Upstate lost to Clemson last night. Final score was 7-3, but that does not do justice to how close that game was. It was a 3-3 tie, really late, 7th or 8th inning perhaps. So that's not going to be easy with USC Upstate. That's a team that is playing well and is out there to make a statement. East Carolina 11, Florida 6. Liam Peterson got 4 outs, and that's not the entire story, but that's a lot of it. We've talked before about how important Liam Peterson's starts are to Florida in terms of setting them up for the rest of the weekend. And so obviously when you only get 4 outs, it really makes it tough. Luke McNeely came on after and really didn't fare any better. And you just want, again, wouldn't be shocked to see Florida play well the rest of the weekend, but you also at the same time wonder if it's just too much on the injury front right now, and if the wheels have perhaps come off. Arkansas 6, North Dakota State 2. First of all, kudos North Dakota State. I thought they played pretty well. I thought they did a nice job early staying in that game. Ultimately, Arkansas was just too much, but liked the way they played. Parker Coyle and Landon Beidelshees were great in relief. Huge for Parker Coyle, a guy who's missed some time and hasn't really been in the mix necessarily to give them those innings. It almost feels like a little bit of found money for Arkansas. By the way, I failed to mention Florida elimination game today against Fairfield, which lost to Coastal Carolina last night. And then for Arkansas, they will play Creighton. We talked about that at the very top of the show. Nice win for Creighton over Kansas. I think 11-4 final, I believe. I have it written down. Yeah, 11-4. Not really an offense I would have thought would put up those kinds of runs, but I think I think against Arkansas pitching, I think it's going to be a little bit of a different story. Arkansas was not the team that, if they came into this regional playing the best, it was not the team that scares me. Like Kansas at its best, I think had a chance to frustrate Arkansas and maybe, at least score a bunch of runs off them. Creighton, I'd be less nervous of from that standpoint for Arkansas, but it's a regional. Creighton's good. Anything can happen. Tennessee. Miami 5, Bama 3. I skipped one on my sheet here. I don't know why it mattered what order I put them in, but alas, I felt the need to go back. Cade Snell thought he had a 3-run home run to walk off. I did a little bat flip towards the infield. Now he always, just the way he swings, he always has a little bit of flip to it. So I don't know that it was not an egregious flip, but you could tell he thought he got it. He just missed it, caught up against the wall. So Miami wins that one 5-3. They will take on Columbia tonight. And then Bama, we talked yesterday about how a Saturday matchup against JB Middleton would be tough for Alabama, but I kind of was talking more about the possibility of that being a winner's bracket game. Turns out it's not. Turns out it's an elimination game. And so JB Middleton against Alabama, Bama trying to save its season. That's kind of that's the nightmare scenario, right? You lose the game, and then it turns out you're going to face the host who held back its best pitcher. Tough break there. That's going to be one of the marquee games of the early slate today, seeing how they fare against Middleton. Tennessee 9, Miami 2. Another game where Tennessee didn't really let Miami hang around. That's what you like to see as a host against 4 seeds. 6 2/3 innings, 11 strikeouts for Liam Doyle. They will take on Cincinnati tonight. And this is the matchup we talked about before the regional started. I heard them talking about it on the broadcast last night. It's just, how does the single biggest storyline, at least heading into the game, is how does Tennessee handle the Cincinnati running game? And that's not the only factor here. But unless Marcus Phillips is really, really good, which he can be, and just totally keep Cincinnati off the bases, that's going to be something Tennessee's going to have to deal with, because Cincinnati's not going to why would they do anything different given the history this season? The Vanderbilt 4, Wright State 3. We talked about this one. Vanderbilt just kind of escaping. Riley Nelson go-ahead home run, the no-hitter drama. There was a lot happening in this game. But they will take on Louisville next. Louisville won 8-3 over East Tennessee State. That's the marquee matchup in this regional. You wonder if it's this kind of deal where we see this from time to time, where a 4 seed really pushes a 1. The 1 ends up just kind of doing the old snatching victory from the jaws of defeat thing. And then the 1 seed goes on to play way better all weekend, and the 4 seed kind of fades. And it's like they gave their one, like a boxer that tries to land the knockout flurry, doesn't get the knockout, and then is just gassed. That sometimes that can happen with 4 seeds. Not saying that will necessarily be the case with Wright State, but you've seen that before. Where are we? Murray State 9, Ole Miss 6. I thought it was on the table. I mean, you guys have heard me on the podcast on this show yesterday talk about how dangerous Murray is and was. I didn't think it would go this way, though. If you told me Murray won, I would have thought it would have been they put up if you'd have told me they scored 9 runs in a win, I would have said, okay, well, they put up those 9 runs in the first 4 innings. And then the rest of the way was just hanging on for dear life. That's kind of how I imagined that going. But instead, I got to give Murray a lot of credit. They got out to a lead. Ole Miss tied it. They grabbed a lead again. Ole Miss tied it. And then they came up with a couple late in the game, 2-out clutch hits to score the last 3 runs of the game. They just kept coming. Murray just kept fighting back and scraping for more. And so I came away really impressed, because I thought once Ole Miss kind of settled into the game a little bit, that they would just kind of overwhelm Murray State at some point. I thought the offense would score some runs and Murray State would have to cycle through some arms, and Murray State's pitchers did just enough, and Murray State's hitters did what I kind of expected them to do, which is, put up runs and give them a chance to win. So Murray's going to have a game against Georgia Tech tonight. Meanwhile, Ole Miss will be playing an elimination game against Western Kentucky. What complicates this for Ole Miss, of course, is that they fired a lot of bullets last night from a bullpen pitching standpoint. And, if you win the game, that's one thing, because at least you got the win to show for it. Now, if they had won that game and fired all those bullets, I still wouldn't love their position with the game against Georgia Tech coming up. But because they dropped it, now it's like it's all hands on deck today. Like I don't know which of the guys they used yesterday could come back, but even if there are some of those guys who can, you're gonna have to get good pitching from somebody else today. Behind Hunter Elliott. We'll see what happens there. And then finally, Mississippi State 11, Northeastern 2, 4 hits for Bryce Chance in that game. McPherson came in, faced him over his final 4 innings, came in relief of Ben Davis, and pitched really well. So just another comprehensive win for Mississippi State. Northeastern now 0-7 in regionals in the Mike Glavin era. Very good team, a lot of talent, and for some reason they just get into regionals and it does not, historically, has not gone well. Mississippi State's got FSU tonight. FSU beat Bethune-Cookman 6-2. That game had a big rain delay right in the middle of it. So it's kind of a disjointed game, but Florida State gets it done. Jamie Arnold on the mound against Mississippi State, another marquee matchup tonight that I'm very much looking forward to. All right, we got a whole bunch of comments in here. I'm going to skim them, but there is no way. Like there are 75 of them in there. We don't have that kind of time. So I'm going to scroll them real quick and try to grab a few here, but there's no way we're going to be able to get through all of them here. Sean Miller says, any truth to the rumor that if Trey Phelps hits another home run today, that'll simply play shirtless and gold chains tomorrow, embracing his inner Mr. T. I would love that. I remember talking to Wes Johnson last year about it when Trey Phelps got hot late in the year. And I was like, what do you got on the open shirt? And he's like, we're going to let him do it for now. It was very much like, look, as long as he's crushing the ball, he can do whatever he wants with his jersey top. But if that stops happening, we can have a different conversation. That's very much what it felt like. And look, Georgia's still playing well. He's still, he's swinging the bat well. So call out as who got blasted by Columbia. That was Southern Miss in that game. Mark says, Joe, is your mom from Louisiana? We might be able to grandfather you into an LSU position. My mom carries the bloodline, FYI. Yes, she was not born in Louisiana. Her father was from Louisiana. She was born in Galveston, Texas. But her father was from Louisiana. They moved to Texas for a job her dad had, working offshore. But yes, definitely very heavy Louisiana heritage in my family. That's not where the Healy comes from, obviously. That would be my dad's side. Scrolling. Colin said, need Ace Reese to wake up. He went 0-4 against lefties yesterday and will be facing Jamie Arnold today. Yeah, it's a good pickup call out. 0-4 against lefties, and then Jamie Arnold, who's like the king of lefties this season in college baseball, I guess you could say. Yeah, that's a tough one. Randy Peterson says, I think State gives State a run for their money today. I think that game's going to be. I think that game's going to be a lot of fun. Joey says, Cincy's run game wasn't scary yesterday, but them barreling up so many pitches was, so they didn't really need to run. Yeah, I think that's part of it. Like Wake Forest, I don't know, but Wake Forest has struggled so much with command this year. I called a game of theirs for ESPN Plus back in March or something, but like Command just did their deal, man. And so I think Cincinnati felt like, look, we're going to get opportunities to score runs here. Like they're going to give us free passes. We're hitting the ball well. Let's not take too many chances. But also sometimes with these running teams, and I don't know, I've not followed Cincinnati close enough to be able to tell you. Sometimes with these teams that have run a lot, there's a fatigue that sets in at this time of year where not everybody, but a lot of guys, their stolen base totals might be very front loaded. Like they got 28 stolen bases, but 18 of them came before March 15th, right? So that could also be a thing where teams just run less in the postseason. Some of it's the risk aversion, but some of it also is just the fatigue. And certain guys are probably a little nicked up, strains here and tender, hamstrings and fouled a ball off the knee and kind of limping around, that kind of stuff. So that's also sometimes a thing this time of year. Sean says, poor Joe trying to catch up and wrap up this chat. Going to be a lot of scrolling. Okay, folks, that's it for today. Enjoy the games. Yeah, I kind of feel like that's where it's headed. That's actually my fear. Daniel Sargent says Boston Smith of Wright State is a very good damn catcher, 24 bombs, 80 RBIs. Yeah, he's in incredible numbers too. Like with those 24 home runs, I think just an absurd number. I don't have the stat in front of me, but like a massive number of those home runs have come in like the last month. Like he's one of the hottest hitters in the country right now. Marquez says the beakers are broken in the Wake pitching lab. That's funny. That made me laugh. Tucker Medlin says a fun game for Joe means I in the game with chest pains. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm in the privileged position of not really having dogs in the hunt. So, yeah, the games that are fun for me kind of end with you all needing medical attention. All right. And then, yeah, call out mentions for Northeastern, guy with 35 stolen bases, didn't run one time last night and reached first twice. Yeah, this time of year, it's just sometimes the teams that like to run, sometimes they're just not in position to do so this time of year, or they don't want runners off the bases. All right. Oh, I'm sorry, Jim. I was trying to there we go. Jim Dillingham says Skip rolled the dice according to some outsiders and won with Malachi while saving Kyson for today. Thoughts? Just got in here. Welcome, Jim. Feel free to go back and watch the rest, but watch the replay. But yeah, it was bold for sure, but I love it. Like I mentioned yesterday, you're there to win a regional, not to win a couple games. Like that's not the metric that Oklahoma is using, right? So your best chance to win a regional, I always think about it this way. If I was a coach of a team like that wants to make a deep run, it's one thing if you've like with Murray State, it is a big deal. Now they were always going to pitch an ace because of the 4 seed. I get that. But my point is for them, winning a couple games in a regional is a big deal. Like, will they be disappointed if they get to a regional final and lose? Yes, but they'll be able to look back and say like, hey man, that's like the best run we've ever had. Oklahoma, it's different. Most SEC teams, ACC teams, it's different. So for them, it's how do we, as a coach, like I would reverse engineer of what's the scenario in which we win this regional, and Kyson Witherspoon against the best team they're going to play, to me is the most direct path. And so that's UNC, that's Saturday night. So it paid off, and Malachi was great. Like kudos to him, like really good outing. And now you've set up to where you've got the scenario. And look, if Kyson just gets outpitched, or if UNC just is able to hit him around in a way other teams haven't, there's a reason why they're the number 5 overall seed. You can kind of tip your cap and move on. But you knew you put yourself in the best position to get out of that regional. So you can kind of live with that, I think. Sometimes if you do the opposite and you burn a guy and then you lose a close game with somebody who's not your best pitcher on the mound, it can lead to second guessing. But if you're Oklahoma, like you set it up perfect, you put yourself in position, and it's either going to be good enough tonight or it's not. All right, that is going to do it for this edition of Weekend Waypoints. Great set of comments, questions, all that kind of stuff in the chat. Love seeing that. Good to chat with all you guys again. I'll be back tomorrow morning to recap Saturday's regional action. The best day of regional weekend is today. We get some tense elimination games with some teams that didn't expect to be there. Shout out to Southern Miss and Alabama. We get those winners bracket games at night to kind of see who's going to end up in the catbird seat. It should be a whole heck of a lot of fun. Looking forward to recapping it tomorrow with you. I will talk to you all then. Enjoy the baseball, everybody.